The old pickup wheezed and coughed before dying completely on the edge of Oakhaven. James "Jim" Harlow sat behind the wheel, staring at the ruin before him, a gas station sagging under decades of dust and decay. Once, he had marched across deserts with his ranger brothers. Now his mission was to inherit rubble. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from withdrawal. He reached for the flask in his jacket, but a pair of amber eyes in the passenger seat stopped him. Rex, the German shepherd, sat upright, gaze fixed on him with a strange weight, as if asking, "Will you drown again, or stand?" The dog's silence was louder than any sermon. For a man who believed his life was already over, this place looked less like an inheritance and more like a grave. But graves sometimes held secrets waiting to be unearthed. The lawyer's office was polished oak and silence. Harold, Harry Stanton, read from the will with the detachment of a man delivering bad weather reports. Jim's sister, Victoria Vicky Hale, sat in her cream suit, lips curved in mock sympathy. "To my son, James," Stanton intoned, "I leave the Oakhaven service station, property and contents." Vicky smirked. "Congratulations, brother. You got dust and rust." Jim bit his tongue. The lawyer continued, "One condition, Rex, the German shepherd, remains under James Harlow's care." A leash tugged. Rex entered, dignified and calm, his dark eyes scanning the room before landing on Jim. Vicky wrinkled her nose. So fitting. A wrecked soldier with a wreck of a station and a mutt. Jim clenched his fists but said nothing. For all her venom, it was Rex who looked at him without judgment. Somewhere in the silence, the dog had already chosen his side.
2 days later, Jim stood in the dust-blown lot, staring at his new kingdom. The gas station leaned like a drunk against the Montana wind. Shattered windows, rusted pumps, a crooked sign barely clinging to life. Vicky's words echoed, dust and rust. He wanted to laugh, but the sound might never stop. Rex padded beside him, sniffing the air, tail low, ears alert. Jim fumbled for his pack of cigarettes, but found only the flask again. He unscrewed the cap, raised it halfway, then stopped. A cold nose pressed his hand. Rex's eyes met his, a silent barricade. Jim cursed under his breath and shoved the flask back into his pocket. That night, silence weighed heavy, but Rex never left his side, sitting near the bed like a sentinel. The station might be dying, but something in the dog's calm presence whispered, "Not yet, not you." By the third night, the craving chewed through Jim's bones. He stumbled into the kitchen, breath ragged, yanking open cabinets until his hand closed on a half bottle of whiskey. He poured deep into a glass, the scent sharp and poisonous. But before he could raise it, a heavy paw pressed against his wrist. Rex stood, tall and steady, blocking him. "Move!" Jim rasped. The dog didn't. His gaze locked on Jim's, unwavering, almost human. Jim tried again, but Rex nudged the glass, spilling amber fire across the counter. "Damn it!" Jim shouted. The echo of his voice died in the empty station, leaving only Rex's steady breathing. For a broken veteran who believed nothing could stop him from drowning, the quiet defiance of one dog was unbearable and saving. Rage subsided into something else, disbelief. Jim collapsed into the chair. For the first time, the bottle stayed closed.
Sleep came in fragments, sand, blood, Ryan's laughter fading into silence. Jim jerked awake, sweat-soaked, gasping. The station was too quiet. Then he heard it, claws scratching the floorboards. Rex stood near the counter, pawing at a cracked tile with sharp urgency. Jim frowned. "What the hell are you doing?" Rex barked once, low, sharp, then went back to scratching. Jim grabbed a flashlight, shining it down. The tile was different, looser, dust shifting around its edges. "You smell something?" he muttered, kneeling. Rex wagged his tail once, eyes locked on the spot. Jim pressed the corner. It shifted under his touch. For a moment, the silence deepened, charged, like a battlefield just before the ambush. Something was hidden beneath his father's station.
and his dog, the one he hadn't wanted, seemed to know exactly where to dig. At dawn, Jim fetched a crowbar from the garage. Rex waited, ears pricked, standing guard by the marked tile. With a grunt, Jim wedged the metal bar and pried. The floor groaned like a coffin opening. Dust burst into the air, stinging his eyes. Beneath, a hollow cavity revealed a battered green metal box. Jim froze, his pulse hammered. Rex whined softly, pressing close as if urging him on. He hauled it out, setting it on the table. The lock gave way easily, rusted and old. Inside lay dog tags, folded letters, and a small leather journal bound by cracking straps. Jim flipped it open, but the pages were filled with symbols, numbers, a cipher. His father's hand. His stomach clenched. A soldier's instincts, long buried, stirred again. He looked at Rex. The dog gave a low bark, tail thumping once. The mission wasn't over. It was beginning.
The journal was heavy, both in weight and in memory. Jim traced the coded lines with calloused fingers. Each page was a locked door, waiting for the soldier he used to be. But buried beneath the papers, a photograph lay folded, a younger Colonel Harlow standing beside a smiling boy with shaggy brown hair. Himself. Jim hadn't seen that photo in decades. His throat tightened. The father who never spoke more than orders had carried this? He slammed the box shut, fury and grief mingling. Rex pressed against his knee, grounding him. For a moment, Jim buried his face in the dog's thick fur. Outside, the Montana wind howled. Inside, silence roared. He thought of Ryan, of war, of the broken nights. But now, his father's secrets weren't just about war. Something larger, heavier, was buried beneath this ruin, and Rex had just opened the first door. Later that evening, Jim returned to the box. Beneath the journal's last page lay something cold, metallic. He lifted it, a brass key, ornate and oddly shaped, the head carved with strange gear-like ridges. He turned it over in his hand, confusion prickling. Rex sniffed it intently, then nudged Jim's wrist, tail twitching. "You think this means something?" Jim asked aloud. Rex barked softly, the sound more answer than noise. A memory stirred, hidden bases, coded locks, field kits that opened more than they seemed. His father had left him this deliberately. Jim placed the key on the table beside the journal. The dog lay down next to it, head resting on his paws, guarding it like treasure. Jim poured coffee instead of whiskey, eyes burning into the brass key's shine. Somewhere, a deeper secret was waiting, and Rex had just shown him the way forward.
Jim spent the night hunched over the table, scribbling letters and numbers on loose sheets. The cipher was maddening. Layered substitution codes, mirrored phrases, numbers repeating like echoes. His training whispered back to him, long-buried muscle memory. He muttered aloud, "This isn't just notes, it's a damn field log." Rex lay close, his steady breathing anchoring him. At dawn, Jim cracked the first line, coordinates. He traced them on an old map tacked to the wall. The numbers pointed not overseas, but right here, Oakhaven. He laughed bitterly. His father had hidden something under his own gas station. He looked at Rex, who thumped his tail once, eyes bright. Jim whispered, half to himself, half to the dog, "Guess we're not done yet." For the first time in years, the veteran felt a mission stirring inside him. That evening, headlights cut across the dusty windows. A car idled across the road, engine low. Jim froze, the hair on his neck prickling. Rex growled, ears pinned forward. Through the cracked blinds, he saw the silhouette of a man smoking, eyes fixed on the station. Jim's chest tightened. "They know," he whispered. He reached for the rifle hidden under the bed, but when he looked again, the car was gone, swallowed by the twilight. Silence returned, heavier than before. Rex stood rigid, growling into the darkness long after the taillights vanished. Jim knelt, resting a hand on the dog's strong shoulders. His pulse was a war drum.
The journal, the brass key, the bunker coordinates, they weren't secrets anymore. Someone else was hunting. And in that moment, Jim understood. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was survival.
The morning brought brittle light, but Rex remained restless. He paced the station, sniffing corners, pausing at windows, ears twitching at every distant sound. Jim tried to brush it off, focusing on patching leaks in the roof, but unease coiled in his gut. When he returned inside, Rex stood by the journal and brass key, tail stiff, growling at the window facing the highway. Jim stepped closer and spotted tire tracks fresh in the gravel. Too neat, too deliberate. Whoever had been watching hadn't left far. He crouched beside Rex. "You feel it too, don't you?" The dog's answer was a low rumble. Jim's soldier instincts flared awake, senses sharp. He slid the journal into his pack, the key into his pocket. "All right, boy," he muttered, checking his rifle. "If they're coming, we're ready." For the first time since Afghanistan, Jim wasn't just waiting for ghosts, he was preparing for war. That night, Rex scratched again. Not at the tile this time, but at the wall behind the old cash register. Dust rained down as his claws scraped wood. Jim frowned, flashlight in hand, prying at the warped panel. A rolled bundle of yellowed paper tumbled free, tied with a cracked leather cord. He unrolled it on the counter. A hand-drawn map sprawled across faded parchment, the station marked at its center. Red ink traced lines underground, ending at an X. His heart pounded. "A safe house, or a vault," he whispered. Rex barked once, pawing at the map's edge. Jim traced the path, straight through the garage floor. A memory stirred, his father's voice saying, "Always guard the ground beneath your feet." The veteran laughed bitterly. "Guess you weren't just talking about mines." Rex's ears twitched. For the first time, the station didn't feel like decay. It felt like bait, and he was caught.
The following night, the sound came again, metal scraping in the dark. Jim sprang from bed, Rex already at the door, teeth bared. He crept down the stairs, rifle raised, ears straining. The garage door rattled once, twice, then went still. Silence. Then a soft pop, lockpicks sliding. He kicked the side door open, light sweeping across two shadows crouched at the lock. One cursed, the other raised a crowbar, but Rex lunged first. The shepherd slammed into the man, knocking him flat, teeth flashing just inches from his throat. Jim's rifle cracked a warning shot into the dirt. The second intruder froze, hands up. "Who sent you?" Jim barked, voice sharp. The man's silence spoke louder than words. They fled, scrambling into the night. Rex chased, barking thunder into the dark. Jim's pulse hammered. Whoever wanted this place wasn't done. This was only the opening skirmish of a larger battle. At dawn, Jim's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. A smooth voice coiled through the line. "Mr. Harlow, brave of you to play soldier again." His chest tightened. "Who is this?" The man chuckled. "Let's just say a friend of your dear sister, Victoria. She believes you're unfit for responsibility. We simply want what's hidden there. Hand it over, and you live quiet. Refuse?" Silence lingered, sharp as a knife. "And you'll find yourself very alone." The line clicked dead. Jim stared at the phone, fury boiling. Vicky had sent these men. His own blood was pulling strings against him. Rex nudged his hand, grounding him. "Not alone," Jim muttered, looking down at the steady eyes of his companion. He slid the journal deeper into his pack. If they wanted war, they'd get one, but not the way they expected. He wasn't just a drunk anymore. He was a ranger reborn.
Later that day, Jim climbed into the station's dusty attic, following Rex's sharp barks. The dog's nose pressed against a sagging beam. Jim tugged the wood free, revealing a rusted lockbox wedged between rafters. His pulse quickened. With a hammer, he cracked it open. Inside lay stacks of old bills,
gold coins, and a single folded envelope marked "To James," his father's scrawl. Hands trembling, Jim opened it. The letter was brief. "What you inherit isn't wealth alone, it's danger. Guard it with your life. Trust only the dog. He knows what I trained him for." Jim froze, rereading the line. His father had trained Rex, but Rex was younger than that. Unless he was the son of a bloodline bred for service, entrusted carefully. Jim looked at the shepherd. The dog tilted his head knowingly. "Damn," Jim whispered. "You were meant for this before I even showed up." Evening settled with quiet too heavy to trust. The bell above the station door rang. Jim's hand went to his rifle instantly. But the man entering wore a suit, not a mask. Mid-50s, short features, calm eyes. He bought a bottle of water, then looked at Jim with a faint smile. "The stars are bright in Oak Haven tonight." Jim's pulse spiked. A phrase from his father's journal, an access code. He cleared his throat. "But the moon is always brighter over the mountains." The man's eyes flickered with recognition. He slipped Jim a card. "Agent Stanton, your father trusted me. Now you'll have to." Before Jim could speak, the man left, car vanishing down the highway. Jim turned the card over. No number, no office, just a single symbol, a wolf's head. Rex sniffed the card, ears twitching. Trust came hard for Jim, but his father's codes never lied.
Rex's paws scratched the garage floor again that night. Jim knelt, pressing his flashlight beam across the cement. One patch looked wrong. He pried with the crowbar until the slab shifted, revealing a rusted iron hatch flush with the earth. His heart raced. The brass key from the box fit perfectly into its hex-shaped lock. With a turn, gears ground softly, and the hatch swung open, breathing out a draft of stale, cold air. Rex whined, tail stiff, as Jim aimed the light inside. A narrow stairway spiraled into darkness, walls lined with stone. He hesitated. His father's letter echoed, "Guard it with your life." He slung the rifle over his shoulder, journal tucked close, and looked at Rex. "You first or me?" The shepherd bounded ahead, paws silent on stone. Jim followed, breath sharp. The descent felt less like discovery and more like a soldier stepping into a new war. At the bottom lay a chamber carved from stone, untouched by time. Dust clung to crates stamped with military seals. Rusted metal shelves sagged under weight. In the center, a massive safe, steel darkened with age, its lock gleaming faintly. Rex padded close, nose twitching, tail rigid. Jim set the lantern on the floor, brushing dirt from the dial. The brass key slid into a hidden notch on the side. The safe groaned, gears grinding, dust trembling loose from the ceiling. Slowly, it creaked open. Inside lay stacks of gold bars, bundles of bills sealed in wax paper, and folders marked confidential. His father hadn't left him junk. He had left him the kind of fortune men killed for. Jim's stomach turned cold. Behind wealth was always blood. Rex barked once, ears pricked. Jim turned and froze. A sound hissed from the corner of the vault. Coiled in the shadows, a snake stirred.
The rattlesnake's tail buzzed, echoing like death against the stone walls. Its scales shimmered in the lamplight, coiled near the very crates his father had locked away. Jim froze, rifle trained, but Rex stood still, body stiff. The shepherd growled low, holding the snake's attention. Jim's pulse thundered. "Easy, boy." He shifted, eyes scanning for options. One wrong move and the snake would strike. Then Rex barked sharply, lunging just enough to draw its gaze. Jim fired once, the shot cracking loud in the vault. The snake's body went limp, sliding across the stone. Silence rushed back, heavy and final. Jim wiped sweat from his brow. "Even dead, Dad's making me earn this," he muttered. He hauled the safe's contents into a bag, gold, cash, and files. Rex wagged his tail once, satisfied. The treasure was theirs now, but so was the war that would come hunting it. They emerged from the hatch at dawn, bags heavy with gold and secrets. But Jim froze when he saw it. A fresh cigarette butt in the gravel. Not his. Someone had been watching. He glanced down the road, eyes narrowing. A black SUV idled just out of range, tinted windows glinting. Rex's growl rolled like thunder. The SUV didn't move, just sat, silent and patient, like a predator waiting. Then slowly it pulled away. Jim's fists clenched. "They know," he whispered. His sister's allies weren't guessing anymore. They were circling. He hefted the bag onto his shoulder, feeling the crushing weight of wealth, blood, and legacy. Rex pressed against his side, steady as stone. The station wasn't just inheritance now. It was a battlefield. And he knew in his gut, the first strike was coming soon. And this time, it wouldn't be shadows in the night. It would be war in daylight.
That evening, the phone rang again. Jim answered, jaw tight. His sister's voice came smooth and venomous. "Little brother, we know what's under that station. You're not fit to hold it. Hand it over, or Rex pays." Jim's blood chilled. "Touch him, and you'll regret it," he snapped. A chuckle drifted through the receiver. So much anger. Father left a fortune for a soldier, not a drunk. Think carefully. You've got 48 hours. The line went dead. Jim stood frozen, the weight of betrayal heavier than gold. His own blood had become his enemy, selling his weakness to wolves. Rex pressed close, sensing his turmoil. Jim knelt, burying a hand in the shepherd's fur. "They'll come for us, boy, but they'll find out we're not easy prey." In Rex's steady eyes, Jim found his answer. He would fight, not for money, but for loyalty, legacy, and survival. The next morning, Jim stripped the station of its decay, turning it into a fortress. Windows were reinforced with steel sheets scavenged from the garage. He laid sandbags by the doors, rigged tripwires near the pumps, and set lanterns to light the interior like a stage. "We fight on our ground," he muttered, sweat stinging his eyes. Rex trotted beside him, carrying tools in his mouth, tail wagging faintly at each nod of approval. Jim remembered ranger training. Defense was survival, but misdirection was victory. He set decoy lights upstairs to trick intruders, leaving shadows for ambush. By dusk, the station wasn't a ruin anymore. It was a soldier's redoubt, ugly but resolute. Jim leaned against the counter, rifle ready, journal hidden in his pack. Rex curled by his boots, ears twitching. Outside, the highway lay empty, but Jim felt it in his bones. The enemy was coming, and soon.
It came at midnight. A van rolled silent onto the gravel, headlights dark. Figures spilled out, 3, maybe 4, moving with military precision. Jim watched from the window, rifle steady. His pulse didn't race. It slowed, every second stretched. Rex crouched low beside him, growl rumbling like distant thunder. The intruders split, 2 toward the garage, 2 toward the back. Jim whispered, "Now." He flicked the floodlights on. The station blazed like daylight, blinding the intruders. Rex lunged first, a blur of muscle and fury, tackling one to the ground. Jim fired, a warning shot that split the night. The other men froze, caught between shadows and light. "Drop your weapons," Jim roared, his voice carrying the weight of war. For a moment, hesitation hung heavy. Then, steel clattered on gravel. The night held its breath. But Jim knew this was only the probing hand. The real strike hadn't come yet. The next day, a sleek black car appeared. From it stepped a man in a suit, face masked by calm arrogance. He strode toward the station like he owned the land. Jim watched him approach, hands tight on the rifle. Rex growled, lips curled back. "James Harlow," the man called smoothly. "You don't know me, but your sister does." She sends her regards and her terms, the wealth, the files, and the key. Tonight, his tone never wavered. Jim stepped outside, sun burning on his back. Tell Vicky, if she wants it, she can crawl through the dust to get it. The man's smile thinned. Then you've chosen violence. He snapped his fingers, and the black car pulled away, gravel spitting. Jim's jaw set. Rex pressed against his leg, muscles taut. For the first time, Jim realized this wasn't just family greed. It was organized war.
Night fell hard. Jim set lanterns in the garage, baiting shadows with light. He waited, rifle across his knees, Rex beside him. Hours passed. Then footsteps. Not stealthy, but deliberate. The garage door groaned open. 3 intruders stormed inside, guns raised. But they hit nothing but smoke. Jim's decoy lights blazing through a haze of burning oil-soaked rags. Confusion erupted. From the shadows, Rex charged, slamming one man into a wall, jaws snapping inches from his throat. Jim's rifle barked twice, bullets shattering crates to drive the others back. "You don't own this place," Jim roared, stepping into the firelight. The men hesitated, fear cracking their bravado. One fled, the others stumbled after, smoke chasing them into the night. Silence settled heavy, smoke curling. Rex stood panting, chest heaving, eyes glowing with firelight. Jim knelt, pressing his forehead to the shepherds. "We're not prey, we're the storm." At dawn, Jim's phone buzzed again. This time his sister's voice was ice. "You think you can fight forever? You're one man. I have an army, and when it's over, Rex will be nothing but a pelt." Jim's blood boiled. "You sold Ryan's death," he spat. Silence followed, then a cold laugh. "Yes, James, his unit died because of me, and if you don't give me the safe, you'll join him." The line went dead. Jim's hand trembled, fury searing his veins. It wasn't greed, it was treason. She'd sold weapons, profited from blood, and now she wanted to bury her brother. Rex whined, pressing against him, grounding his rage. "We'll make her answer," Jim swore, his voice steel. He looked at the journal, its coded maps gleaming faintly in dawn light. The fight wasn't just survival anymore, it was justice for Ryan, for his father, for every drop of blood.
That night, Jim slept fitfully, dreams heavy with desert sand and Ryan's laughter cut short. Rex's sudden snarl jolted him awake. The shepherd stood rigid at the window, teeth bared. Jim grabbed his rifle, peering outside. A package sat by the pumps, small, innocuous, deadly. He crept forward, Rex low at his heel. The box reeked of chemicals, a trap. He carried it to the gravel, heart pounding, and hurled it into the field. It detonated with a violent crack, flames tearing into the dark. His sister wasn't just sending men now, she was sending fire. Rex barked furiously at the blaze, his body shaking with adrenaline. Jim knelt, gripping the shepherd's collar. "They'll burn this place to ash if we let them," he muttered, but his eyes hardened. "We won't let them." The station wasn't just walls and pumps anymore. It was their ground, and they would defend it with fire. At sunrise, the sleek car returned, but this time it carried a different passenger. Agent Stanton stepped out, eyes grave. "Your father knew this day would come. He left proof, evidence of your sister's crimes. We need it." Jim hesitated, then handed him the files he'd pulled from the vault. Stanton flipped through pages, jaw tightening. Enough to bury her in every court in the country. Rex barked sharply, as if approving. Stanton looked down, then up at Jim. "But she won't wait for a trial. She'll strike again, harder. You'll need more than a rifle. You'll need allies." Jim studied the agent, suspicion tugging at him, but Rex sniffed Stanton's hand and sat calmly. That was answer enough. Jim extended his hand. Then let's finish it. Stanton clasped it firmly. The war had shifted. For the first time, Jim and Rex weren't fighting alone.
That night, headlights filled the horizon, 2 SUVs roaring up the highway. Armed men spilled out, circling the station like wolves. Jim stood in the doorway, rifle raised, Rex bristling beside him. Stanton's team moved silently from the shadows, weapons ready. "Come out, James," a voice bellowed. "End this, now!" Jim stepped forward into the floodlights. "This ends," he growled, "but not the way you think." Gunfire erupted. Chaos swallowed the station. Bullets chewed through walls. Glass shattered. Smoke and dust filled the air. Rex lunged, dragging a man down in a blur of fury. Jim fired, moving with the precision of a soldier reborn. Stanton's team pressed hard, striking from the flanks. The battle roared like thunder across Oak Haven. Jim fought with teeth, steel, and rage. Not for gold, not for vengeance, for Rex, for Ryan, for every truth his family had tried to bury in blood. When the smoke cleared, the SUVs lay riddled with bullets, men cuffed on the gravel. Stanton's team gathered evidence, their faces hard with victory. Jim stood in the doorway, shoulders heaving, rifle smoking. Rex leaned against his leg, panting, fur streaked with dust and blood. Slowly, the sun rose over Oak Haven, spilling light across the battered station. Stanton approached, files in hand. "Your sister's finished. Her empire dies with this evidence." Jim didn't answer. He knelt, pulling Rex close, forehead pressed to the shepherd's skull. "We made it, boy. We did what Dad asked." The dog licked his cheek, steady and alive. For the first time in years, Jim felt peace. Not perfect, but enough. The ghosts of Ryan and his father lingered, but their legacy wasn't ruin anymore. It was loyalty, forged in fire. As dawn blazed brighter, Jim realized the truth. He hadn't inherited a station. He'd inherited a war, and won.